Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, and today I'm coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And I don't know, I think we've talked about it before, but it's just what I'm feeling right now, and it's how stupid a lot of the older generations are when it comes to the economic issues. I'm just thinking about it, with what I'm doing, working as much as I'm working, and stacking cash. If I was doing this in the 2000s, even just 20 years ago, early 2000s, I would be so fine. I would be doing so well. I'd be able to move out and just have my own house, probably, just not even in that much time. It's crazy to think about that, but just because I'm working in the 2020s, I'm just getting nothing, you know. And so I guess a part of that makes me mad because I understand the whole premise of the filtering, and I believe that's what the elites are doing. Like, they kind of just want to see people crash and burn, and they also want to I think they want to eliminate property eventually. It's interesting seeing all that play out too, because I still believe that is what will take place. I don't know, I can't say when, but all the signs are pointing towards that kind of stuff. We're seeing it very much in real time. And so it just kind of makes me mad that I'm doing this stuff, and yeah, I'm really grateful because I know how much better I have it than a lot of people. But at the same token, it's kind of frustrating because there's these older people. I'm not even as mad at the elites. I'm more mad at people because it's these same people that voted the way they did that caused the problems that we see today. My parents' generation, kind of anywhere in between, really. Nobody cared. I don't think anybody really tried to vote properly at all. It's kind of crazy. And I'm not talking just about parties, although I know a lot of the hyper-capitalist Reaganomics is what led to what we see now, and you could say, oh, well, that's a Republican issue. I don't think it's parties that are the problem, because having a two-party system is not inherently a problem, and having a conservative and a liberal party, that doesn't really matter. It's just about having two good options. Ideally, that's how things should work. I don't really think it's even that. I know a lot of people stress about the two-party system being bad, but I don't think I would really care if there were just two good candidates. And it wasn't about lesser of the two evils. It was about, oh, well, this person would be good, but then, I don't know, I feel like this guy's better. And then that's all there should be to it. Instead, and I'm assuming this is also due to just them exploiting human psychology for votes and whatnot, it's always about vilifying the other person to absurd lengths and degrees, and sometimes it's accurate, but then you don't even know if it's accurate or not, because it's usually exaggerated as well from both sides, because both sides would have inherent reason to exaggerate for their own self-interest. So there's a lot. There's a lot to think about with politics, and I think that's why people get frustrated. But ultimately, people either didn't participate or voted incredibly poorly for multiple decades. And so I don't think we would be in the situation we're in right now if people had voted differently. We just wouldn't be. But I don't think people ever really cared, and it kind of comes into this conundrum of you had such good times, you had such a good era, and it didn't matter because people, I guess when things are too good, people will just indulge and not care. I don't know, that's what it seems like. I think it's really difficult for humans. I really do. To hold people accountable, especially in places of power. And so, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if I'm that mad at elites. I really don't. I think I'm more mad at just regular people. And I guess that sounds rude of me, and I could obviously change my opinion about this, but I'm just saying for the time being, that's how I feel. Because I guess elites have some kind of greater strategy or scheme, even though it's going to cause a lot of pain. I'm assuming they have some kind of positive best interest in mind, right? They want to progress humanity, or they want to create a superior system. This is what the elites are doing. The common people, they usually don't have any higher aspirations besides just themselves maybe wanting to have a family, own a home, which these things to the elites are very trivial, obviously. And so I guess that's why I just don't see, and I have a feeling there could be some elites where that's how they justify it. Because I'm sure that I'm not the only person who's figured this out, that it's, yes, like, the billionaires wouldn't be able to get away with what they got away with if people were just very politically active and held them accountable and voted for good policy and good politicians. But people don't do that. So why would they feel guilty about abusing the system the way they do? It just doesn't, I don't know why they would feel guilty. Now, I mean, I think I might. So I guess you get into, yeah, I mean, they could be more self-centered people, perhaps. But even that, I mean, that's like a whole conversation in and of itself. Because the whole thing about a lot of these things and a lot of the future and the property seizure and all this stuff, it actually is rooted in a better tomorrow. So I don't know if that is selfish or not. It's just weird, but no. Well, what I'm trying to say is, because it's a difficult moral question, because we know that there are people who are just not useful to the world, and that is sort of a problem. I know it goes against God and it goes against most morality, so that's why it's a difficult thing to talk about. And even when I talk about it, I don't really feel good. It's not like a good stance. I don't feel that. I think any human kind of feels sad with the realization that some people just don't really have that much potential. And I think it's actually exacerbated by technology and people's inadequacy with operating it, because that has really thrown a lot of people off. I mean, it threw me off. I think having access to social media as a teenager makes absolutely no sense. Like, I was watching all kinds of crazy political content and had a bunch of beliefs that just weren't really rooted in anything realistic, because it was just these random people saying it. And I don't think it's good. I think social media should definitely be restricted to teenagers, or at least yeah, like limited. There should be only certain vetted content that is allowed to be consumed by people who aren't adults. But even adults, because I think 18 being an adult is not really, that's not really a good metric for adulthood. I think especially at this point, it should be 25. Now, I guess you could make the argument it is better to have a standard to grow up faster, because, you want people to be independent and on their own sooner rather than later. Like, even in my case, I think it was too easy. It was too chill. And I should have been hitting the ground running, getting a job sooner. So that's the problem when we shift that. But I'm saying, even though you can work when you're 18, I just don't think you're like really an adult, because your brain's not fully developed until 25 anyways. So it's kind of, I just don't really get it. I guess I always thought about that. And whenever I heard that said, I thought it made a lot of sense, that really a lot of these things that happen at 18 should really be pushed until 25. I honestly, I just, it doesn't make that much sense. Now, of course, getting a job, I actually think getting a job should be more normalized even at 16. Obviously you don't have to if you don't choose to. Like, you could make a law like parents aren't allowed to force their kids to work, but it's just more of a complicated system, because you have to get the working papers or whatever, and there's limits. Although, I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's just that I wonder if I was young, because I kind of wanted to get a job when I was younger, but then I never ended up doing it. And so I think it should be as easy as possible for anybody to get a job if they want to work. And that's not promoting child labor or anything like that, because like I said, it would only be for people who want to, but I know I would be better off if I was working since 16. I would be doing very well. I'd be doing super well right now. My life would be fine. It would be perfect. But like I said, maybe that's when you get into the character of it. The character of who I am as a character, and how, I don't know, hopefully that's better or something. Hopefully I'm not just coping. I know I'm coping to some extent, because it's still, I could be doing a show like this even despite everything. And yeah, I don't know. But you have to go with fate. I think it's important to just think about fate and destiny and God's plan for everybody, as opposed to, I still keep doing it. See, I still keep hindsight 2020, look back, I should have done this, should have done that. I'm always doing that, and it's crazy. It's not a good thing to do. I don't know. It's definitely a habit I need to kick, for sure. Because it it never got anybody anything. That's the truth of it. And it's not getting me anywhere, It's just not. But I always think about that. I always think about how much I would be on fire. I'm already on fire now, but I don't really have much of a foundation. Like, it's still going to take probably another 2 years to build a proper foundation. And I'm even grateful that even in this economy, I'm able to do that. But we don't know. I guess I just have to hope for a housing crash or something, which I actually saw an interesting video about that recently, that there could be another housing crash despite all that's being done to artificially inflate the value of housing. It's possible. But it might take a while. It might take like a decade. It's hard to predict stuff, but I think the timing of when I was born, we'll just have to see whether, like, how off it was. If I think I've explained it before. It's another thing. I think a lot of these things I think about, there's no point in thinking about it. Like, there's no reason to try to figure out when the best time to be born was, because I can't change it. It's not something I can change. It's not something I can do anything about. I guess it's just for fun, but it's still stupid. It's technically a stupid thought. And it shouldn't even, it's like wasting electricity, as in my brain and body's electrical signaling, and it's wasting time talking about it because it's just a senseless conversation. But I guess I just have to have it. And I wonder if being born slightly earlier or later would have been better. I just think for my brain and my sanity, I'm glad I was born when I did, and I'm glad I made it through being a teenager when I did, because that's a miracle. I'm glad I'm not a teenager anymore. If there's one thing I'm grateful for, it's that I'm not a teenager. I'm grateful I'm past that stage of life. It's just so terrible. It is just so terrible. And teenagers are horrible people. They're just immature. They're just horrible. And so I'm grateful every day that I'm past that stage of life now, and we can just look forward, man. I don't know. It was just a rough spot. It was just a rough spot. I know a lot of people will reminisce on their school, and I guess there's some moments to reminisce about, but at the end of the day, I think it's just all raw, utter hatred, and nothing more, nothing less, but just hatred. Maybe more hatred. But that's all there is to it. Now, something I've always thought about, and I've probably talked about it before on here, but who knows, is this idea when it comes to what people do with their time and what's good and what's bad. And it's something I've never really heard anybody else touch on. So I wonder if it's possible I could be pretty rare in even thinking this far about it. So I've always differentiated the difference between a want and a need. And this is kind of why it's a little bit difficult for me to have fun or do quote-unquote fun things like play a video game or something, because if I'm playing a game, it just feels like nothing, like I'm not really doing anything. Nothing's really getting accomplished, and it's not even a real experience. It's only real to me, which minimizes its value a lot. Now, I guess I allegedly could have a save file that's kind of cool that I could show people. So in that case, you have something tangible to show. But that's usually not the case. And so video games, it just doesn't do anything. Versus what I'm doing right now of recording, it's fun, but it's also something tangible. It's something I'm recording, I can post, and it took effort to make. Video games take effort too, but a lot of times you might end up spending money, you might end up just kind of wasting time. And I don't think anybody even really puts this much thought into it. I mean, why do we even play video games? Is it just because of boredom? Is it chasing a feeling? Is it chasing the rush? What is the purpose? Because I honestly think a lot of people who play games wouldn't even really be able to tell you. it's probably just a compulsive activity. You know, it's just like people just do it without even having a consideration for anything. I don't know, maybe that differentiates me from other people. But see, I even with this awareness, I really wasn't able to do anything with it until now. Because I've had that awareness for almost 10 years about separating activities by want versus need and by real versus unreal. So a few examples of that is texting somebody. I see that as a real activity because you're texting another person, you're creating a real memory. It really happened because somebody else remembers it, and it occurred to another form of life. If you just play a video game, there's nothing happens. You know, it's an event that just never really occurred. It was never living. Now, of course, people are going to say, oh, well, now with multiplayer games it is, but it's still a dead moment. You know, the only time I don't know why I'm not clarifying this, my apologies, but obviously if you play video games in the old sense of like, oh, let's go hang out at this guy's house, we're all going to play on the Wii, and it's a real moment with your friends, yeah, that's fine. But the problem is most gaming is not even that anymore. It's difficult to even do that. And then a lot of times it's multiplayer, it's online, it's via a headset, and then people's social etiquette, I know we've talked about this before, is awful because people don't know how to treat someone properly in person, let alone over a screen and a microphone and headphones. You see what I mean? People don't know how to treat someone right in person. You can only imagine how horrible humans are at treating others over the internet. Even if you knew nothing about it, just with the inherent limitations of human-to-human interaction in the physical, we are well aware. We are just simply well aware of how much worse it would be via the World Wide Web. I don't know why I'm like talking in kind of a goofy way. It's not on accident. I am trying to be a little bit like silly right now. And if you don't notice that, I guess, well, I don't know. Like if you don't notice that I was being silly, I guess I don't really know what to say. I'm just kind of fooling around with myself, rattling off these random things. I'm not even getting to my main point. I think in the future, there will be greater respect and understanding for where I'm coming from about how we should selectively restrict certain human activities that we do. So if you do something and you see that it doesn't yield anything, you probably shouldn't do it. You know? It's kind of what I'm getting at, because there's a lot of things like that, and some are actually, this goes into that first video I made. It goes into the first, because it was about alone time and isolation, but I think it also goes into productive time and how really though, as long as you're not doing anything productive, even if you're doing things that are productively neutral, you're probably pretty far ahead of a lot of people as long as you eliminate all the productive negatives. Because there's productive positives, neutrals, and negatives. So neutral could be a video game, but it depends on the game. Some games are not good for the brain, and others could be. And then actually, that kind of brings up the broader point of people who just blanket statement make, oh, video games are bad, oh, video games are good. It's actually both perspectives are incredibly flawed, and the truth is some games are bad. Like, some games are just not doing anything for the brain and probably should be discouraged or even outright restricted, but there's other games that are fine. Some video games are actually, they probably are beneficial for the brain and don't really have any clear side effects. So it completely depends. It depends on the game. It's not like all video games are inherently bad. It's some games are good, and I think you could have a society with games, but it has to be good games. And maybe that's part of the problem, because sports before were always just normal sports, so we're not used to having to regulate entertainment in the way we have, because in the way I think we have to, because entertainment has just exploded in the past couple years to a degree that humans never could even conceive of. Just totally lost my train of thought. I'm doing better than yesterday. I'm actually I'm happy with this episode, at least. So even though I just lost it, we'll just continue with what I actually wanted to talk about, which is, I think my belief will be respected. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who agrees with me, and I think in the future it will be agreed, because people will be like, yeah, you shouldn't just do things for fun. If your only reason for doing things is for fun or because you're bored, then that's a problem. Then you shouldn't do it. Find something better to do with your time. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird how far I've came with my life, but it's fragile, because again, it could all change if I can't keep getting the hours at work. But assuming I can keep getting the hours I'm getting, it is interesting how far I've come. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm completely undepressed. There's still certain things I think I have to work on, and it's mainly kind of finding the motivation to organize a lot of the stuff I have, because I have too much things. I have too many things. I don't think it's too much things. I don't know why that came out. I think it's harder speaking than writing. When you're writing, you kind of see everything and you have more moments to catch stuff. But when you're speaking, it's just very live. It's very active. So I think it's harder for the brain to correct and anticipate things. Now, I don't think that. I know that. I'm saying something that is actually undisputed. Yeah, I can't believe. But yeah, I think in the future more people will like look back at me saying that kind of stuff and be like, "Oh, he was onto something. Oh, it doesn't make any sense to just fool around." I think that's what people are going to say in the future. Because right now it's just difficult for people to see it. It's difficult for people to see and understand it. Because, I don't know, I guess human judgment clouds people. But I think at some point there will be systems in place that will figure it out, I guess. I would hope so. Of course, then there's the bad timeline. I try not to think about the bad timeline. No, I've been thinking about the bad timeline more. It's fairly plausible. I think it's very plausible. But I guess there's not a reason to not hope. You just can't let hope blind you from, oh, things are great now, I don't have to do anything. I think that's like it's important to be optimistic. But actually, I don't know. Could you be like a positive pessimist? I think that's something that's a very important dynamic to look into, because there is a need in the world for pessimists. I think a lot of times when you gauge things worse like that, it can be more accurate. If everybody was an optimist, a lot of people would probably get let down, and there'd kind of be a lot of frustration, I think. So I think a positive pessimist is good. And what I mean by that is somebody who is pessimistic, which means let's say they estimate things on the conservative end, but their aura is still positive about it. They're still a positive human. They try to be bright, but they have very conservative estimates about things. I think that's probably the ultimate. I mean, I guess you could argue it's accuracy. Accuracy is really the main metric. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you would want to be like very close to accurate, but I think you want to be. No, actually, no. Yeah, I guess just forget optimist or pessimist. Forget optimist or pessimist. It should just be about accuracy. Why am I even making this stupid positive pessimist thing? It should just be about just getting stuff straight, getting stuff dead on. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it should be about. Nailing things. Nail it. You know, that's really what life should be about. It should just be about getting the stuff right in the first place. Yeah, and of course, light's red even though there's no reason for it to be red. It's just insane. I don't understand how these things work. Some lights make no. Well, we already know road design doesn't make any sense. I haven't even looked that up, but I just know that has to be the case. And it causes a lot of pollution and issues. It does. Causes extra wear on people's cars, but nobody cares. Nobody cares to fix these things or anything like that. So it's crazy. It's crazy that, you know, that's kind of why I guess people think you just kind of need to wipe everyone out and reset everything, the great reset. Because it's all just so cluttered. And I can only imagine if I actually had time to figure a lot of this stuff out. Because I've just casually observed a lot of it. I don't think I'm a particularly serious person. I think a lot of this stuff I just do because it's fun, or I don't even know why I do it, because I'm bored and I notice these things and I notice the trends or whatever it may be. And so I can only imagine if my job was to actually be a politician or like a local person and try to fix things. I can only imagine how good that would be. I should be. That's really what I should be. Except the problem is I don't even think politicians do that kind of stuff. Because you'd have to have a little bit more of a scientific brain. You couldn't really have a politician's brain. And I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I think this is a pretty commonly held consensus that is the conundrum of politics and an elected office, is it's usually people who are not meant to be there. Like, it's just people who are there because it's a popularity thing, or because they like power. It's not necessarily someone who... Well, there's also material success to it, so a lot of people wouldn't vote for someone who isn't doesn't have a successful financial career, for example. And so that affects things a lot, obviously. Because a lot of times I don't even think financial people they're not even that great when it comes to a lot of things. Like, I don't even see myself as a financial person, right? I was never really thinking much about career. I was always just thinking about, I guess, people and, like we've talked about a lot, systems and the greater good and all that stuff. And so most people who think about money are not, they're thinking about money. So it's just a different person altogether. And I'm sure there's even more extreme examples than myself, really, because I still am fairly money-minded, but I think a lot of people who are caring and just, I don't know, do a lot of that stuff, maybe they would be a good strategist or a good fixer of all the systems and things. They're probably just never going to make it to elected office. You know? I don't know, because if they're not rich or they're not outwardly successful, so much of being a president is just about vibes, man. Like, I really don't think and I don't think Americans especially, I think it's just a human flaw, and that's the scary thing about democracy is you can lose it. I just don't think people realize that. I don't even think many people now care about voting. But I've already talked about that a million times. It's just crazy. Like, having the right to vote is actually a big deal, and the fact that people just don't engage with that it's actually insane. It's it's actually one of the stupidest, craziest things about it's not just this country, it's just humanity. Like, not voting is just crazy. I don't know. And I've known, I think most people I've known don't vote. And then obviously they talk about how, participation's high for the presidential elections. These have been record-breaking participation rates. But in the side elections, it never even reaches 50%, in the midterms or things like that. And I know we've talked about how that could, I don't know that we've talked about it, but it could potentially be a good thing because maybe you don't want all humans voting, but the problem is it just kind of skews towards wealth, and then that's not really, because again, it's like renters are less likely to vote and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't skew, it's not like 40% of people vote and it's the upper 40%. There's also a lot of people who are super smart who don't vote, and that's why it becomes an issue. You see what I mean? Like, if it was only 40% of the population who voted, but it was like the top 40% IQ, things would be great. That's not the problem. It's like a lot of people who vote are just like totally not. I mean, you have a mixture of people who are just partisans, and then people who put barely any thought into it, and there's probably people who vote that don't even know what a senator is. And it's just obviously a huge issue, huge problem. But yeah, it's been Schla, and sadly, it's time to buy Schla. So, see you, Schla.